So without further ado, welcome everyone. This is our Digital Human Touch program and also the Digital Human Touch Engage Your Client webinar, kind of the flagpole of the whole program here. And what we want to do with you in this webinar and the whole series is bring to you a whole slew of tools, maybe some new tools, or maybe give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge on existing tools that you already have, and make the most of this weird time that we're in right now. Keep in mind that everything's been designed here that it can live on after this crisis. So we didn't design it specifically in mind of the crisis. It actually generated, or the genesis of it was at our last national sales meeting, where your reps told us that they would love to have other means of getting trained, because Jessica Smalley, our national sales trainer, is doing a terrific job of going cross-country to train as much as she can, but she's still just one person. So we decided to put the pedal to the metal and bring this whole new program to you in the webinar form so that we can reach more of you, but we still wanted to have small groups. We didn't want to do a huge 100-people webinar because we want to be able to have contact with you. The human touch is still a very important part of this. So that's why you have smaller groups. We'll have more of them. Same webinars repeated week after week, depending on demand. And new webinars will also be brought in. We're already working on a couple new ones for SketchUp, and also OneNote for those that will use OneNote. I'll briefly introduce it today. So that's the whole series. Today we'll actually be looking at a couple of specific things about being able to work in the digital environment, digital age, best practices in there, and concrete tools, down-to-earth tools that you'll be able to use, like Zoom. You're seeing the tool that we're using right now to reach you is a pretty good, effective tool to work with. And we'll also address some concerns. Zoom has been very, very under the microscope lately, and there's been some security issues that they've mentioned. So not to be worried. Nobody's hacking this feed, and I do want to be transparent and upfront, so we'll talk about the security issues and what Zoom is doing and what are alternative tools. But as you can see, we're still doing it in Zoom, so we're pretty confident that it's a very good tool to use. So with this brief introduction, I'll hand it over to Kaylee, who will present a little more in-depth the webinar, and she'll also present me. But first, I'll present her. So Kaylee is the star of the show today. She is Territory Sales Manager, a rep for us. She's been in that position for over 18 months now. She was actually trained as an interior designer and used to sell Cabico before joining us. So she loved the product so much she bought company, or at least she was employed by the company. So she has a very unique perspective. She knows your pains, she knows your needs. So she's well equipped to present to you today this webinar. She also covers a lot of territory. She spans over 2,000 miles in Canada and can go really far up north, about 900 miles. That's where the polar bears get cold and create their own fires, because they're pretty bright in Canada, the polar bears. So, and oh, fun fact too, she is a putting competition champion. I think she has a trophy. There we go. So in her spare time, Kaylee loves to putt. So without further ado, Kaylee, you can...
My short game is strong. Thank you, Steph. And I would just like to mention we have a couple other Edmontonians on the call today. So we're not that far north. I mean, we are pretty far up in Edmonton, but doing just fine, even if it did snow the last 3 days in a row or whatever it was. But thank you, Steph. So Stefan is based out of Montreal. He's part of our corporate team. He's our Cabico experience manager, which means everything that you see, feel, touch that's Cabico related, he's in charge of that. So any kind of branding, marketing, how our employees engage, social media, everything is under his umbrella. Steph hosts a comedy show in his free time. So that's why he's our host today. He can keep things fun and light, and we're expecting some good jokes. So he also has a 3D printer, and I found out today he 3D printed his own flower pots, which was pretty impressive. Did not know you could do that, but yeah, he's got some pretty good skills. So
I'm ready for the apocalypse.
He's ready. He's got his flower pots. So we are going to cover 3 sections in today's webinar. So first, we're going to go over best practices working from home. That we consulted with a organizational behavior specialist. Her name's Dr. Lisa Belanger. She's CEO of a company called Conscious Works. And so what that means is she studies how people work. And we're going to get more into the nitty gritty of that, but there's some pretty interesting science behind what we're going to go through. And the second section is how to engage your clients digitally. With working remotely, it's kind of a different ball game. So we're going to go through the steps of that. And lastly, Steph's going to walk us through your digital toolbox. So what you will need to remotely work with your clients effectively, how to install them, how to use them, how to show your clients to use them, just making it the process as simple for you as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you here. And like Steph had said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask or to pop them in the chat, and we'll have Steph moderate that while we're going through. And we'll pause for questions. Monday we had amazing feedback interaction. We definitely want to hear from you if you find these things work, or if you have other things that you think would be beneficial to the group, definitely pop in the chat. Okay.
Keep in mind too that we will provide you this PowerPoint presentation as a link towards the end of the webinar. So whatever good information, because there's going to be links in there, and there's going to be a couple of tools that we'll talk about, and you will have that handy. We're also working on a set of extra tools that Kaylee will present to you, a toolbox, if you will, and once that's ready, we'll send it out.
Thank you. Okay, so looking at the schedule, we've actually had a pretty amazing response so far. So the week we're in right now is currently full, and next week is already filling up pretty quickly. So we're keeping these, we're going to pump these out for as long as we have demand for. But once you get that email, please sign up as soon as you can if you do have that to secure a spot. So today we briefly touched on this, our 3 modules we will be going through. And we'll start with working from home best practices. So we're going to cover designated workspace, embracing your new normal, deliberate and scheduled connection, healthy boundaries and breaks, and last, the fun aspect.
My favorite part.
So designated workspace, this is something that I did completely wrong when I first started from home, and that was a transition that once I actually got into the groove of using these tips that are backed by science too, it made such a difference. And the purpose of this today is not to tell you what to do, but it's just to help you better work effectively from home. Everyone's got a different schedule. The way we work is completely different. So it's just being as effective as possible. In your designated workspace, try as much as you can to have it away from high traffic areas. So this was the biggest mistake I made, was setting it up on my kitchen counter or in the dining room, and there's so many distractions going on in your day-to-day life. So whether or not you're super cognizant of it or not, it will be distracting. If you can, work away in a different room with a door, away from, if your whole family is home with you too, that will definitely help give you some mental separation. Natural light is always best. If that's not available, keep it well lit, and a consistency of workspace. So this is where Steph had a great example of this yesterday that I'll have him share with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. When we started this, at first I'd like to throw it off to the group here. I'll interact with you as the webinar goes along, because I don't want this to be a long conversation between me and Kaylee. I want you to get a lot out of it. So I'll ask everyone in the webinar to look at the bottom of the screen, at the Zoom screen, and you should see a little bubble called chat. So if you click on chat, it'll open up the Zoom chat, so you can talk to us there if you don't have your mic available. And also you have something called participants. So if you click on that, again, the black bar at the bottom of the screen, if you click on participants, you'll see the list of participants, but you also have a button at the bottom of that pane that can raise your hand. So can I get everybody to raise their hands just to make sure that you found that button? Roberto wins. He's first. Timothy and Ryan second. Shannon is in fourth place. Kelly is in there too. Okay, so we got a lot of showing of hands. Excellent. So perfect. Let me know if you can't find it. I'll walk you through. Okay, so I'll lower all hands. First question, who here has a designated space right now to work out from? Raise your hand. Okay, about a little more than half the group. Saw that cat too. Cool. I had an issue with this because I have an office. You're seeing it right now. I've always had an office at home for when I do work from here. But with the recent crisis, my wife also has now started to work from home. So lacking a second office space, she decided to set up in the kitchen because again, it was well lit. Have huge bay windows so we can look outside. Beautiful nature outside. So she thought it would be the best place to set up because anytime she felt stressed, she could just look up, look at the nature, relax. So that worked. But the issue, the problem is at the end of the day, we would still live in the same space. So she would close up the computer. We would start to prepare dinner, and then we start to eat, but the computer was just next to her. So she would open it up, check a couple of things, come back. So after a couple of days, she actually felt like she never disconnected from work. And that's detrimental. You need to be able to tap out here and there. If you decide to work on evenings, you decide to work and you go back to that designated space or office you have. So what we did, we actually sacrificed our guest bedroom because apparently we don't have any guests that can come home for a little while. So I had an extra desk, brought it up, put it in the guest bedroom. It's actually just behind me. And now she has a designated office space. There's natural light. She added like more lights to that. So now at least when she's done, she's done. She can go back to the living room, the kitchen table, and she's not pulled back to work. So it may sound trivial, but it's actually really important to have separated because we also have tons of interruptions in the day, especially if you work from home, if you have kids at home, you have pets, you'll constantly be disrupted by that. With an office, at least, or designated space, you can close that off to a certain degree, or you can at least advise the family that this is a meeting time or an important time so that you share the load. So great point, Kaylee.
Hey, thank you, Steph. I love that example because it's so true. Embracing your new normal was the next point, and this was one that we had great feedback from Dr. Belanger on, because as much as we're saying embrace your new normal, there's absolutely nothing normal about how people are working right now. It's changing by the minute. There's a lot of stress and anxiety more than usual, and it can be really hard to focus on your regular day-to-day tasks. So the biggest part of this is just managing the expectations for yourself and for your team. During a time like this, it is really important to cut yourself some slack. If you are going to have maybe half the amount of productive working hours in a day you'd normally have in the office, because maybe you are at home, you're sharing your workspace with your partner, you're sharing childcare with your partner. I mean, everyone's situation is changing by the day. So it's important to take that part, take it a little easy on yourself and on your team, and just keep open communication. Within that, to build a schedule for your day. So if you know that you're available from 8 till 10, from 12 till 2, maybe you're switching off with childcare, things like that, just communicate that with your team, schedule it in. This was something that I've found so beneficial working from home, is putting in 30-minute windows exactly what I'm doing for the day. That'll help you get out of bed, get started. Otherwise, if you have tendencies to procrastinate, they do tend to be emphasized a bit when you are working from home, because there's so many other things that you can do. You can start doing the laundry or do the dishes and just be distracted with things like that. So schedule it in, schedule your breaks. We're going to get more into that in a little bit. And also creating new ways to move, stay connected, and get outside. If you're in the office day to day, or on site, moving around. You're creating a lot of momentum for yourself that way. Working from home can feel a little bit stagnant when you maybe start doing emails from bed and then you go and you're working on your laptop on the couch. Your brain reacts better to having that physical movement. So if that means you want to go for a 10-minute walk in the morning, or that means, going to a different room in your house, physically moving to that other room, staying connected. So that just means keeping open communication with your team, especially, and if you are at home with your family, managing expectations for everybody and staying connected with them. And lastly, getting outside. It's pretty cold here today, so I'm gonna have to bundle up for my 10-minute walk that I do on my breaks. But so important to get outside when you're stuck in the house. If you're commuting or going to site, like we talked about, you have a chance to do that, to give your brain a bit of a break in your day-to-day routine. So it's just important to make a point of that while you're quarantined in your house. Oh, through the chat.
No, we're good on chat right now. As we're changing slides here, anybody here? How was your experience right now with staying at home? Let's throw it off to Marnie. Marnie, you've been working from home a little while. How's it? How have you been coping with it?
Hey everybody, it's been good. I will definitely say, I'm used to working from home on days when I'm not traveling. So I do have the designated workspace. And in normal situations, when I do work from home, I find it really important to get up, get showered, dress as if I'm going into the office. I think with this kind of new normal, it's going to be even more important to do that occasionally. Not every day, I understand we're quarantined, pajamas are totally acceptable. But I think every couple of days, it's important to get up, shower, fix your hair. It's amazing how good it makes you feel when you do those things. Another just like kind of cute anecdote that we're doing, talking about getting out and getting fresh air. We're really fortunate. We live in a neighborhood in North Carolina. It's been somewhat good weather. So every morning, my husband and I have been like walking around the block as if we're like going to work. So we get up, we take a little loop around the block. We make our kids ride their bikes like they're riding their bikes to school, and just take a quick loop, and it just brightens your day and gets you started with like a, just a deep breath. So that's it.
Cool, thanks, Marnie. If you don't know Marnie, she's one of our reps down in the U.S., so I know she has good experience with that. So thanks for sharing that, Marnie. And maybe one last anecdote. One of my colleagues was talking to me today and says, what the first thing I do to have a normalcy in our life is to actually do our bed in the morning. I'm like, what? I usually don't. I'm not pretty good at doing that. It's like, yeah, and it's a simple task that if you do, and you have to do it really well, like pristine folding of the covers and everything, because you start your day with accomplishment. It sounds trivial, but it's just a start, and you start with something, it's checked on your checkbox, and you're moving forward. So sometimes if the spirits are down, that can actually help you. And then this is not from my mind, it's actually something that the U.S. Army did in the war in Vietnam. They had the soldiers do their beds pristine in the morning because the morale was so low and down that having them do that in their general or whatever the upper management person there would just congratulate them if it's done well. So it's kind of bringing that here too at a smaller scale and starting your day on a nice foot, being already checked out something in your schedule and yet moving forward.
Is that one of the habits of highly effective people? I thought that was one of them, and it was so surprising.
It is. We also have some Roberto sharing with us that 1 week in and things are going well for him. And he's using also Microsoft Teams to connect with clients. And that's a great point, Roberto. We internally use Microsoft Teams. We chose Zoom externally for webinars because there's a couple of advantages with registering people. And also connecting with all of you through Teams would require also that to some extent your clients have Teams too. We can work around that, but we've had some login issues, so that's why we decided to favor Zoom for as a tool to share. But you're entirely right. We can also use Teams to connect. And it's from Microsoft. So one advantage, Microsoft has been under the spyglass for a very, very long time. So they might actually be a little more secure than Zoom. Back to you, Kaylee.
Hey, I love it. Marnie, thank you so much for that example. I love hearing that. Okay, so deliberate connection to schedule it is, first of all, I had to start doing this because not that I like being alone, but I live alone, so it's kind of easy. I'm used to it. And then I have a few people on my internal team or in my support network that we just decided, hey, let's have our morning coffee together. So we schedule it. It's at 7:30 every morning. We have our coffee. We do a FaceTime. We both look like disasters, but it's fine. We get a chance to talk about something that's not related to the news or about social media, and it just gives a little bit of normalcy. So I love to schedule this with coworkers as well, because you get to replace that water cooler talk to a certain extent. So if you even have a couple minutes before you start your Zoom meeting, or you want to do your team coffee in the morning, you can have that little bit of normalcy that you would normally have in the office. And then also taking those one-at-a-time opportunities. So previously to this, there's always maybe those one or two people on your list. You're like, oh, okay, when I have time, I'm going to call them, or I'm going to connect with this person. They might be a customer service person you talk to every day that you always wanted to maybe get to know a little bit better, or a client that you haven't reached out to that you wanted to check in on, or a prospect. This could be a great time because everyone is captive in their homes right now, so you can schedule something like that and take advantage. The last deliberate connection, this was another great point that we got from Dr. Belanger, were the mindful minutes. So this is about connection with yourself. So to take a minute, whether it's before a meeting or maybe you've just had a really stressful phone call, taking that time to connect with yourself, or you can use these mindful minutes with your team members or with a client on the phone. So it's just taking a minute to bring yourself to the present to reduce anxiety that you might feel. So those can include open-ended questions kind of thing, like if they've cooked a new recipe, are they doing HelloFresh at home, have they been watching Tiger King, these kind of things, just to allow people to relax, take a breath for a second, and will do wonders in a time like this where it can be stressful and anxious for certain people, for sure. Most. Does anyone have any, are people doing coffee hours? Are you staying connected with your team? How is everyone finding the isolation?
Sue, go ahead.
Yes, we meet each morning as a team from Granite State Cabinetry here in Bedford, New Hampshire. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
We have an 8:30 a.m. call. Too early for me because I'd love to sleep in, but nope, can't do that even working from home. It's probably a good thing to do, and I'm sure our ownership knew that. So every morning 8:30, and we also kind of start with something fun.
Yep.
So today we rotate who's going to initiate the thing that we do. Today we did where I'm grateful I'm not at, and a lot of people said, cruise ships or New York City, and then where I wish I were. So that was kind of a fun icebreaker to start the meeting off.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm pretty sure nobody answered where I would like to be, and they answered again cruise ship or New York.
Absolutely, those were the ones that when somebody said it before you, you were going, oh no, what am I gonna say?
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Sue. And we've been experimenting too with the morning meeting, of course, but also at the end of the day. Depending on your type of team and how closely you work with them, a morning meeting is great as a briefing. It starts it up. You make sure everything is set up for the day. People know their priorities. But an end of day meeting can be also really cool to recap things and see if we need to adjust for the next day. And we love to keep it even lighter. So just make sure we're tapping out that no urgent issues are still on the table that we need to address right away. And then we'll just have a little bit of fun. So the fun that you're putting at the beginning of the day, which I should now do, I was doing at the end of the day also. So that's pretty good. Back to you, Kaylee.
Thanks.
Anybody else wants to share their recipe in this? Because it's co-development. We welcome all tips and tricks, and we'll share it amongst everyone.
Hey.
Back to you, Kaylee.
Thank you. There was one point of Sue's that I wanted to touch on quickly, was the gratitude portion of it, which we didn't bring up before, but that's also something that if you're feeling anxious or stressed, if you stop and just think about something that you're thankful for, or think of something positive, it will immediately have an effect on your brain. And I think that's a really important point that you made, something that where you're thankful maybe not to be. And I bet at least one person said they wish they were in Edmonton for sure.
I know Marnie has her hand up. Anything you want to share?
Oh, I was just going to say, I love that, Kaylee. I actually have an email chain with a group of friends where every morning we write like what we're grateful for. So it's kind of a gratitude email chain, and it really is helpful to get your brain focused on what is going well and what you are grateful for. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Thanks, Marnie.
Okay, so this is my favorite portion of the whole program, because this is something we really focused on with our consultant. So science behind this is really cool, and it's things that we all know, but it is really great to see the studies and the science behind it, and why our brains act a certain way, and why doing certain things increases or decreases productivity. So the main point behind this is breaks are good. Schedule them in. Schedule intentional breaks. If you want to use a timer, I put mine right in my calendar, and then I have my checklist. I'm going to finish items 1, 2, 3, and then I take my break. Depending on your workflow, this can change day to day. Just make sure that you make them intentional. It's been shown that your brain can really only focus for 60 to 90 minutes at a time. So if you're not taking these intentionally, that's when your mind will start to wander. You'll notice you're picking up your phone, scrolling through social media. Maybe you're just not paying attention at all. You're completely zoned out. Your brain's going to do that automatically. So schedule them in, take them by all means. And when you are taking a break, it's been proven there's 3 types that are the most beneficial, and 2 produce increasing your productivity, and some that will decrease your productivity. So these are what we're calling successful interruptions. If you are at home, the 3 best ways to take a break include connection with self. So that can mean something as simple as walking away from your desk, going into the kitchen, grabbing a coffee, and just really being kind of present in that moment. What that does, these 3 points, what they do is the portion of your brain that's responsible for decision making. When you are doing any of these 3 things, it helps to shut that part of your brain off just for a minute, allow it to reset. So when you do come back to work, you're better able to focus and work productively.
Hello.
Claudia, go ahead. Oh, I think it might be background sound from Claudia. I'll mute.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
Marnie, I think you wanted to say something. Oh, no, she just lowered her hand.
Oh.
Go ahead, Kaylee.
Yep. So connection with self, connection with others. So if that means you wanted to make that social call, schedule it in. Definitely talk about something that's maybe not in the news. Don't talk about work. Take 10 minutes just to make a personal connection. And the last, which is really, really cool, is connection with nature. So being outside and meditation were the 2 best ways to actually shut off this portion of your brain. So if you're into meditation, that's awesome. You can reset that portion of your brain. If you aren't really into it, just go for a 10-minute walk. It has a very similar effect on your brain. And then with everything that's going on, you really can't avoid the news. You shouldn't avoid the news. You should know what's going on, but try to put that in either the beginning of the day or the end of the day. If you're constantly checking it, that does definitely increase stress, anxiety, those kind of things. And also social media is shown to decrease productivity and mental well-being. So if you can just keep these into certain portions of the day, try to not have them as part of your working breaks, but rather at the beginning or the end of the day. And those have been proven in studies too. increase and decrease productivity, which is pretty cool. This is a really important thing for me to do. We're talking about getting out of bed in the morning, as Marty said. Get up, get dressed, get your day started, schedule in different activities for you to do, schedule your calls in the morning, and it's amazing how that will get you going and get you motivated for you to have, whether it's a productive full day or you have 3 hours to be productive. Just pick a time that you're going to do it, schedule it in, and also choosing an activity for mental separation. So what that means is in your daily life, when you are going into the office, you have that chance to get in your car, drive to work, and your brain is making a switch that you're not necessarily going to be super conscious of, but you are making a switch into work mode. If you typically don't work from home and you get up, it feels kind of like a weekend day every day. Choose an activity that you can have as your kind of pre-work ritual. So some people like to work out, some people like to make their coffee and read an article. Just pick something that will give you that bit of mental separation. At the end of the day, this is almost more important because to start work, you can go down to your office, start work. It doesn't have to be a big deal. At the end of the day, it can be a lot harder to shut that part off. So if you have an office door, you can close your laptop, close the door, that's great. If you don't, kind of how Steph was saying before, close your computer, put it away. If you find your mind is still going, go for a 10-minute walk, even get in your car or go for a drive around the block, go for a walk around the block. Give something to separate the two, and you'll find your evenings, you're not as stressed out about work things because it's not as present as it would be if you don't implement these.
And if I can jump in, Katie, also one of the things is as though, even though we're very isolated right now, we tend to be everybody in their houses or as close to that as possible. There's a reverse effect. We are with our families like never before. So we spend much more time with our significant other or with the kids and the dog. And too much of a good thing can also be a bad thing. So I was reading more and more upon you still need to retain a little bit of time for yourself. So you might decide to go for a walk by yourself at some point in the day, or isolate yourself to read a good book and let the other one handle the kids for a little while. So to stay healthy, mentally healthy, it's also good to have those me moments in the day that we tend to lose because we're always in such proximity with the immediate family members that we have.
That's actually a really good point. Does anyone here have an example, if you are home with your spouse and your children, how you take a few minutes for connection with self or something you can do on your own?
Marnie, are you coming on?
Sure. I just go, I have a chair in my backyard and I schedule, like you said, I have it in my calendar and I schedule like 10 minutes to just go sit out there by myself.
Yep.
And it's been really wonderful.
That is awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay, our last point. So, Marnie, I'm so happy you're on this call because one of the things that happened recently with you and I actually was we had another meeting. It was on, that one was on Teams, and I got to meet Jack, Marnie's son. I've never seen him before. I came over, got to do a little introduction. It's such a great opportunity. These people that you work with every day, and lots of times your coworkers become like your family, and it's so nice to make that little bit of extra connection there. And he's very, very cute. So that was fun. It doesn't have to be isolating. Definitely take advantage. If you have a webcam and you have your microphone, you're working with clients, coworkers, it doesn't have to be isolating. Stay connected. Your brain craves social interaction. So some people obviously are more extroverted, some are more introverted, but you still do require that social interaction. So we'll keep your brain healthy. We touched on before morning coffee, happy hours, getting creative with how you want to spend your time. So that was really great to hear from a lot of you that you are incorporating those into your day-to-day schedule working from home. The happy hour idea, I stole that from Marnie. She gave us that, so thank you. And then to get creative with how you want to have fun. So if you want to have an internal design competition, if you've been working from your home office and you maybe want to change it up, you want to change your design, you want to do a nice built-in desk or something like that, take this downtime to keep that part of your brain engaged and collaborating with other designers on your team. When you're in your office and you can go walk over to somebody's desk, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? It's really natural interaction. So definitely keep that going as much as you can and schedule it in. Well, in the next section in Zoom, when I'm talking about screen sharing, all that kind of thing, it is so easy to share projects, share whatever you're working on with your clients or coworkers. So definitely take advantage of that, staying connected and engaged. I am curious if any of you have implemented anything in your team in terms of maybe outside of your normal scope, what you do in the office, if you're doing any like design competitions or any kind of fun events. Okay, so maybe we need to give some ideas for those.
Maybe.
Okay.
So I'm understanding everybody here doesn't like fun.
No, none of them. Trying to see who we got. Okay. So next, so once you've got your home office set up, you're working optimally from home, you've set your calendar, schedule all of this in, and then we're going to walk through engaging your clients digitally. Some people have their showrooms open, some are only doing remote meetings. So these are just the best practices we've found working with dealers across North America, some that work remotely quite a bit already, some who are getting into it. So let's get everybody comfortable with your tools and how to do that. So introducing the new process, scheduling your appointments through your platform, using a digital engagement checklist, going through a dry run, and what to do during. So this is going to be new for you and new for them. So if you can just pick up the phone, contact them to explain what your new normal is, let them know, hey, we're using Zoom or Teams, whatever your platform is. Most have used something similar before, but if they haven't, you can walk them through the process, how to install it, how to use it, and managing their expectations. So to say this is going to take 60 minutes, it's going to take half an hour, we're going to cover X, Y, Z, I require this from you, or you don't need to bring anything, just to manage what you'll be covering, and then also managing if they have their mic set up, if they have a webcam set up. The face-to-face nonverbal is so important, which we'll get more into Stefan's section. Just really showing the importance of the nonverbal and visual communication.
And you're entirely right, Kaylee. It's super important, and I've seen great differences between. It can seem trivial, going, "Hey, they know it's a new digital thing," but no, they don't. They're not comfortable in that yet. So just when you're having contact with them and say, "Hey, I know we can't be physically face to face. I can't get you to the showroom for whatever reason. Well, you know what? I have a virtual meeting room that we can use. And don't worry, I can actually show you some plans. I can show you renderings from home. I will be able to send you samples, and you have those samples on hand, or actually use my iPad to walk my showroom to show you a couple of nice cabinets. But letting that know will probably reduce a lot of the stress related to what will we do online. It's not like our usual way of doing business. And to me, it was really driven home in the past in some trainings I had, whereas my trainer said there's really one step between good and great, and that's the amount of preparation you put in it. So doing that, exactly what Kaylee was saying, is setting up expectation is part of that preparation, and actually has a huge impact. Marty, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I've been doing a couple Zoom meetings with some of my dealers, and I think this would be applicable for those of you having a Zoom call with a client. One of the expectations I said is like, look, we're all working in a new environment. My kids are here, my dogs are here, so it's fully acceptable and okay if your kids run through, or if somebody comes up screaming, or if the dog's barking. Like, don't be ashamed or upset by that. So I think that's a really important expectation to set too, that it's okay. This doesn't have to be perfect. This doesn't have to be the most, it's professional, but I get that there are going to be interruptions. I might have some on my part too. So I think setting that expectation kind of lowers people's anxiety about being on a video call or what have you.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Great point. And we'll actually show you today how to change your background in Zoom if it's too busy and it's distracting. There's virtual backgrounds, and you can also do something similar in Teams. If ever you use Teams like Roberto does, you can blur the backgrounds. I won't show you how to blur in Teams today, but hey, if you want to ask questions, Friday there's a Q&A session on that, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Mm-hmm.
Back to you, Kaylee.
Thanks. Thank you again, Marnie. So going into scheduling an appointment, once you've walked through, this is what we're going to do, this is how the platform we're using, this is how it's going to go, and exactly like you said, managing, that's a great expectation we didn't talk about, but is a really good point to bring up. Send the invitation as you're scheduling it through the platform. So if you're sending your Zoom registration, you can schedule the meeting, which we'll walk through in the next section. You can have them, yep, I got the email, this is what it is. And then when you're scheduled to, they just click on the link and they can join the meeting. It's so simple in Zoom. And just ensure that they understand the text. So exactly just walking through that step by step, especially if they haven't used it before. Okay, have any of you been using Zoom so far? Like Marnie has, are you?
Show of hands in the chat window or the participant window. So Sue, Marnie, Jessica, of course. Ryan has. Yeah, so it's a minority, a little bit less than half.
Okay.
Ryan says Uber conference. Oh, I don't know that one. And Amanda has not had a virtual meeting yet. Well, except for today. And don't worry, we'll show you how to start it up. It's really simple. And that's why we use Zoom. It's probably the simplest and it's free. So a lot of advantages there.
I'm sending Amanda a Zoom meeting request because now I know that she wants to practice.
Excellent. Google Hangouts. Yeah, we'll talk also briefly about the other tools. So there's plenty that you can pick up from, depending if you want to do it more professionally or more family oriented.
Yeah, definitely. So using a digital engagement checklist, as Stefan had just mentioned, the difference between good and great is preparedness. So this is something that can seem like, oh, I know what I'm going to need, but you can use a tool like this to have everything uploaded, make sure everything is formatted correctly. And what we have here is using a checklist for your document check. So we're going to go through the tools you would need to upload to have a smooth presentation for your clients. Clear, concise meeting minutes. So where typically you would maybe write this down during the time, make this available to yourself and your clients so you can know exactly what you walked through in the meeting. Keep these notes as you're going to keep that communication nice and open. If you write something down as, oh, that's not what I meant, this is a great opportunity to keep really clear notes. Have samples prepared where possible. So if you're doing more face-to-face over Zoom like this, have that on your desk. You can show exactly what you're talking about. You want to have your construction styles available. If you are still working from your showroom but doing remote meetings, have your iPad or laptop. You can switch in Zoom between devices. So if you also have your laptop and it's, okay, let's switch to my laptop. We're going to go in the showroom. I can show you exactly what I mean in a display. You can do your meeting as if they are in the showroom still by taking advantage of these tools. Okay, so dry run. Steph had to sit through a few of these last week with me. So did Jessica, because I've never hosted a webinar before yesterday. So we did a few, just a dry run through everything. Make sure everything that you have uploaded is working properly. You won't have any glitches. You can keep your meeting running efficient, smoothly, and then make any necessary changes if something doesn't feel quite right. And lastly, what to do during. So I started making this list of what I would do when I've had to have virtual meetings before, and then what we just kind of realized is this is what you would do if it was in real life. So keep it light, keep it social, have a nice intro, have your mindful minute if you want to ask a question or ask what someone's gratitude point is for the day, just to get everyone present in the moment and kind of pull them away if they're feeling they're feeling anxious about what's going on or stressed out about something else, just to bring yourself into the present. The audience is your focus. So with this, it was exactly like Marnie said. If you can hear their kids running around, there's a pet in the background. If they had their children or pets walking in the showroom with them, you wouldn't ignore them then. Don't ignore them now. Take the opportunity to get to know them a little bit better and put them at ease that it's completely fine. This is everyone's new normal for now. So don't ignore it, and acknowledge it, and it will make everything a lot easier. So walking through your agenda, the checklist is great because you can edit it however you want. If you say we're going to go through our layouts first, then our elevations, our renderings, then our price list, you can use that as a guide. So just let them know how you're going to run the meeting. And lastly, exactly like you would do, asking probably even more open-ended questions. People, when you're working especially with custom cabinetry, they may not know what the terminology might be. They might not know exactly how to ask the question. So definitely keeping that engagement, even if you have a list of open-ended questions, that can be great because you can ask plenty as you're going, get them to really speak freely and openly with you about their thoughts and what they want, and obviously getting all of your small yes answers for your presentation.
One thing, if I can, Kaylee, also that I love, it's a simple tool. When I start off a meeting, I always try to keep in mind the 3 Ps. I call it the PPP. It's the purpose, process, and payoff statement. So it means that when I start a meeting, face-to-face, virtual, even on long-winded emails, I'll start with the purpose of our meeting. So today what we're doing is to give you a couple of new tools or to refresh tools that you already know about so that you can better digitally engage your clients. So that would be a purpose statement. The process, the way we'll do it is that we will have 3 modules, like Kaylee mentioned at the beginning, and it'll take about an hour and a half to go through these 3 modules. So that's the process. And then I finish it off with a purpose, process, and payoff. The payoff statement is, why are you here? What's in it for me? Because all clients are always thinking in that. So this digital meeting, so let's go from the webinar to maybe you talking to your clients, and you say, our next digital meeting, you'll see at the end of it, you'll have a much better idea of what your dream kitchen can look like, because I'll share with you some renderings and also I'll show you some samples. So even though you're not face to face, I'm rest assured you'll have a great idea of the kitchen. So that finishes off on something a little high. So that to me is the simplest tool: purpose, process, and Sue, you have a phone.
Forgive me.
No problem. I'll just mute you. So purpose, process, and payoff, the 3 Ps. And that actually helped me a lot in my professional career. So what to do during a meeting at the beginning, PPP.
Yeah. So I have a question for Ryan. Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
How are you finding working with, you work with quite a large team. Are they using tools like this to engage with clients, or mostly over the phone? How do you find the transition is going with your showroom?
Kind of slow. That's why I'm on the webinar right now. We're trying to learn some new tips and tricks on what we can do here. A lot of it over the phone. There are few individuals who are familiar with Zoom. So that's, we really need to jump on this fast so that we can carry on, because this could be the new norm for a while.
Yeah. Well, we hope to, following this, that once this is all over and we're kind of back to a little bit more of the industry norm we would have, that you can use these tools even after to work remotely when available, keep your projects running. If you're on the phone with a client trying to explain something, hey, let's do this on Zoom. I can show you exactly what I mean. So once we are kind of more out of this, that this will still benefit, we can still implement this into our regular sales process. So.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, it is your turn. So Stefan, thank you so much. We're going to have him go through installing the actual tools, how they work. He is our resident expert with all this. He knows how to print 3D flower pots. He can do Zoom. So he's definitely our expert. So we're going to walk through installation and use of the new tools. And I'll let you get started.
Excellent. Before we move to that, anybody has any questions or comments on the great interaction and things that Kaylee shared with us a little earlier? And the real reason why we take moments to ask you a question, it'll allow you to jump in and us to take a sip of water. So you know my secret. Okay, so let me just jump in. I'll have very few PowerPoints because we'll be more hands-on with the this part of the webinar. But I do want to start off on the Zoom slide here. So one of the tools Roberto had mentioned, he uses Team, which is great. Works a little less good for webinars and registration, but it's great for internal team and with your clients too, because they can interact with you really easily. So if you have Office 365, Teams is a great tool. We use it. We love it. Because I know not all of you have Office 365, I wanted to talk to you about a piece of software that everybody can use because they have a free version. And, and the news is going really fast right now. Zoom, if you want to buy stock, it's already too late. Zoom stock just skyrocketed because everybody's using Zoom. Now, Microsoft is a little bit anxious because they don't have a free version. They were trying it out, but it was not really out. So now I think at the beginning or like in a week or two, they're going to roll out a personal edition. So competition is heating up there. But today we'll focus on Zoom because it's available today. You have a free version. And it is the simplest one to use. Your clients won't need to download tons of things, authorize, register, nothing. Once you install it, of course, you have to register and you'll get a free account. If I already want to upgrade that to a paid account because you want more functionality, it's easy for you to do. So and you'll see again, I've put a lot of links in this PowerPoint so that when I'll give it to you towards the end of the session, you'll have all the links for you so you can go back on that PowerPoint and navigate it. So where do you do a Zoom meeting? It's on zoom.us. So if you open that up, it will bring you to this homepage and you can subscribe. I don't have the subscription button here because I've already subscribed, but you'll have a big, huge subscription button in front of you. Now, let me just open up my second computer so I can show you some of that process. We'll go Inception. So it'll be presentation within a presentation. So I'm going to remote access another computer because I can't show you the Zoom interface from Zoom because it's hiding it. So if you have this sign up, it's free button, you'll just need to use a work email address. So whatever email address you want to use, you can put it there. And you can also use a Google or a Facebook signing. And if you prefer automated signings, you can do that too. So you just here put your email address, hit sign up. I've done that before because I prepared sometimes. So now once you're signed up, you'll be able to log in. So you'll have a little login button at the top right. So if I try and log out just to give you an idea of the experience, see I have my sign in button here because I've signed up. You put in your email address, your password, and you go sign in. It'll bring you to your dashboard. Super simple. There's a lot of information. It does give you a lot of possibilities, but super simple. One of the important things you need to know is that the little pop-up at the bottom right is actually useful here. It says your Zoom basic plan, the one that is free that we're using right now, has a 40-minute time limit on meetings with 3 or more participants. So if you're just talking one computer to another computer, your clients, you have unlimited number of time. You're not limited to the 40 minutes. Where you have a 40-minute limit is if you have more than 3 computers from different location trying to get in the same meeting. That's where you'll be limited unless you upgrade. So for one-to-one communication, one computer to one other, you're unlimited with the free version, which is great. And now you have a lot of information there. You don't need to know a lot about this to get started. One of the things you'll see, I have a basic account. We can upgrade that, but we're good for that for now. You'll have a personal meeting ID too. that is kind of an ID attributed to you, like your conference room ID. That's just for you. But we won't work with that too much because already that gets a little bit more complex. Some of you might be comfortable with that, but if you want to stick with the basics, you don't even need to remember this. Now, you have your sign in, you have your passwords, that's all good. What we want to do here is actually see, hey, can I schedule a meeting? That's usually the first thing. If we go back to Kaylee's checklist, like I'll prepare, I've just talked to my client and I want to meet with them next week, I'll just hit schedule a meeting. So if you just got log in and then go to schedule a meeting, you're golden. So I'll click here. You can give your meeting a topic. What's our topic today, Kaylee?
Let's do webinar run through number 8.
Webinar run through number 8. You could also add a description if you wish to. You don't have to, it's optional, but this will be part of the invite that you'll send out to your client. You can then schedule a meeting just like you do in Google Calendar or Outlook if you use those. And let's go for tomorrow at 11 a.m. And I'll schedule an hour meeting. And don't worry, it's not because you scheduled an hour that after an hour it shuts down, nobody can talk to each other anymore. No, it's just to plan it so that your client, you can have calendar invites that will block off that amount of time, but you can go long if you want to. Again, it'll remind you that your basic plan just go to 40 minutes if you're 3 participants or more. You could set recurring meetings, which we won't do. And you see here meeting ID, generate automatically, and personal meeting IDs. I would strongly suggest that you leave it as generate automatically, especially now because I said at the beginning of the webinar, Zoom is getting a lot of scrutiny. And there's been some concerns about how private it is versus it isn't. So if somebody knows your personal meeting ID and you use it a lot, they could jump in. So if you generate automatically, you just got that issue out of the way in any case. So, and it's there by default. So even if you forget this, you're good. They've moved it to generate automatically. So it's a different ID for each meeting. So if somebody really wants to get on yours, they would have to have the invite that you sent to your clients. You could require a meeting password, but I don't like adding issues to my clients logging on. So I do check that off by default so that the clients don't have to remember or find in their email their password. I just want to remove barriers there. Video. You see how it's off for the host and the participant? You can leave it that way. One thing I like to do is put it on by default for the host. And that to me is incredibly important. You see today, me and Kaylee are on camera talking to you because that human touch is very important, especially now in the digital age or in the situation we're in right now. We want to bridge that digital divide as much as possible. So by having the camera on, you'll have at least your clients will see you. They'll see how passionate you are about bringing them the best possible kitchen or cabinets from whatever rooms you're working on. Ideally, your clients also have a webcam, and in that prepare your meeting, and you can tell them if you have webcam, it'll be great because we'll be able to react to each other. And I can't stress that point enough. So much so that I've put it in my presentation. So I'll skip ahead a couple of slides, just talk to you about, and that's a study that was done. That's in my best practices. Use your camera. Any emotional communication. So it says communication here, but think emotional communication. If it's just me telling you, you have 15 of this and send me that, that doesn't apply. But anytime there's emotion involved in your communication, let's say selling a kitchen, it's very emotional, hopefully very positive, but people have an emotional context and a lot of skin in the game in there. So there's always an emotional context for that. So this would apply. Content, the words you're saying actually represent 7% of the message that goes through. 7% of what their client is perceiving is content is only that. Verbal, so that's your tone of voice, the speed at which you talk, the inflection, the pauses. So if I want to mark something that's really important, I'm going to go, hey kids, stop right now. So see the tone went up, the speed changed. I could do also dramatic pauses. So stopping there marks a point. And I haven't said anything more. So there's 38% of that emotional communication that goes through that. So that leaves about 55, a little bit more than half of the communication is actually nonverbal. It's actually talking with your hands, your facial expressions. So you get a client in an emotional context actually gets more of seeing you than you're actually saying and how you're saying it. So that's why using your camera is incredibly important. And they're not pricey. You can go either you have one on your laptop already, which will probably do fine unless your laptop's ancient. Then you go for a webcam that retails for about $35 US. Then in Canada, that means about $75. But in US, it's pretty cheap. So you don't need to go for big things. Logitech is a very good sound company. Right now, I'm talking to you on my 720p Logitech camera, and it's probably around $45 Canadian here, so still within that range. So that to me is a key point. Anybody has issues with that? Any shy people that would like to do it only vocal? Now's the time to voice your concerns.
I prefer it to have less definition. No one wants too high def. That's not good for anybody.
Actually, Zoom right now is smoothing our skin. There's actual algorithms in Zoom to smooth your, so you have less wrinkles, less shaving artifacts. So
Thank you, Zoom.
Zoom does that automatically. So there you go. Host on. I'll leave participant on off. They can turn it on if they want. I'll encourage it, but I won't have them necessarily on by default. I don't want to go, hey, I didn't think the camera was on, and they're just like their hair's in starts on the wrong foot. The rest of them, audio. I do suggest that you go computer audio because they do have phone numbers, but they're paid. So if you go for a free version, I just limit it to computer audio. But in that case, what I do, I want to make sure that I manage expectations. I set that expectation ahead of time. I'll say, hey, when we'll talk through a video conference, I'll use this tool called Zoom. You'll have the link in your email. Please test it beforehand so that when we do have the meeting, and you can test it like 3 days beforehand. You just log in and it'll let you know it's not started, but you want to test your mic. What does that look like? Again, I put that in my PowerPoint so you have something to work off of. So that little window at the bottom, test speaker and microphone, we've actually sent that to you before so that you could do that. And I wrote a little blurb here that I tend to send to my clients. So in order to have the optimal experience and all that, so you can copy paste that and send royalties to my address, please. So you can start off with that, inspire yourself with that, change it, do your own. But that to me helps manage a lot of expectations, and I spend much less time troubleshooting my clients that have a microphone issue than actually I would have done before if I didn't do this little step. So computer audio, and then I'll just save. See, enable join before host. You don't need to think about all these things. No need for a waiting room when you're one-to-one. You've experienced the waiting room in this larger meeting and webinar, but you can forget about all of this. So if I sum it up, to set up a meeting, you need to put a topic, when, the duration. If it doesn't show the right time zone, adjust it. Let's say we're Edmonton time right now, so we have a couple of people from locally in Edmonton. Leaving that generate automatically, and video on host, computer audio. That's it, and I'll schedule it. I'll just click save. So now you have a Google Calendar button, an Outlook calendar also button, or if you are a fan of Yahoo, I don't know if there's any left, you can hit the Yahoo Calendar button. So what does that do? So I work with Outlook. If I click the Outlook ICS, it'll actually at the bottom left of my screen download the meeting information. So if I click on that, it will open up Outlook or your default email client if it's based on Windows. And if you wait just a moment, it will also open up a new email. That's where you relax, take a sip of water, and there you go. So it creates a basic invite for you on the title and the topic you put in. The location becomes that Zoom link. So you can add to this, write your own little blurb, and let your client know about what's going to happen. and then you can invite your attendees.
I have a quick clarification question for you, if you don't mind,
Oh
from
yes,
Kat.
go ahead.
So she just wanted to specify, when you select computer audio in the Zoom screen, if someone's using their phone or a tablet, that will still be the audio on your mini computer, phone, or tablet. So it will still work.
Exactly. And that's one of the, thank you, Kat, for that question, because it's the beauty of Zoom also being super simple. If I click on that meeting link on my phone, it uses my phone audio. So I can go with on ear or put it on speakerphone, because if you share your screen, which I'll show you in a moment, you can actually share it on any device. So you can share your computer screen, they'll see it on the phone. Of course, if you're showing renderings on the phone, it's not the best experience, but it's doable. So, and the same thing for tablets. It'll use whatever mic and camera is incorporated on your device. So in today's age, everybody has a phone. So if there's a problem you logging on the computer, you can at least do it on the phone. They'll have a smaller picture. They'll be still be at least able to see you. It's like if you were doing FaceTime or Google Duo, except with a little bit more flexibility on your side. And I'll walk you through these in a moment. Does that answer your question, Kat? Cool. So once you've sent it out, it's just a regular email, and Kaylee will be able to jump in. Oh, anybody else has a question? No? Heard just a little bit background noise. So what does it look like when you actually go in the session? Kaylee, don't jump in because it'll be weird. Your camera's already used for one meeting. It won't let you use it twice. So I'll just create a fake meeting on my end here. So I'll close this Outlook. It's the same functionality for Google if you click Google. But if you're using neither, let's say you're using Apple as a software, you're still not out. You're good. You can click here to copy the invitation. And keep in mind, if I'm going a little fast on this, the video will be made available by the end of the week, and you'll have the PowerPoints too, which I have a couple of links that walk you through the same steps online that I'm doing with you now. So here, any other device, you just copy paste this information to your Apple calendar or whatever software you use that is not by default available here. So now, before I do a walkthrough of the meeting itself, any questions on this up to now? We're good. So to do an instant meeting, I can click here, host a meeting. And I'll actually turn on the video. So that would be the same as you clicking on the link that you sent to your client. Now it's the right time. You want to jump in. You'll see Open Zoom Meetings. You can go Open Zoom Meetings here. It will automatically download, if you haven't done that yet, a small app to make the meeting run. And you'll click here. If ever your clients are having a hard time because they have a hard time with the app, they can, I'll just move that over so you can see, they can actually use, if nothing prompts in the browser, click here to launch the meeting. So they can still launch it through the browser without downloading anything. So you're always covered. So let's bring the meeting back on screen here. And you'll see me from another perspective with a different background. So let me just change that. I'll walk you through that, don't worry, because it's a really cool thing. So this is the actual view you'll get with my other computer here that you'll see. And you see that little pop-up, they'll get that too. Join with computer audio, and that's where I said test it beforehand. Even before the host is there, I can test it last night and click on it and try it out, and then you can join with the computer audio. Now, a couple of things. When you're in the meeting itself, you can navigate. At the bottom left, you have your mute button. You've already checked that out. You've clicked on it for most of you. You can start or stop video with this button. When you don't use your video, your name will be displayed as what you registered. So, and that can always be changed. So if you don't like your name, you can rename yourself. Differently. So Bill Gates will sue me because this is not, it's not his software. So I'll put the camera back on here. One of the really pro tips here, cool things that you can do, is actually enable a different background. You know, when I was saying if it's too busy in the back and you see the kids, and it's okay, like Marnie said, if you see them a little bit, but if it's just too distracting, you can change it. Or if you're in a very messy room and you don't want your clients to see that messy room, next to the video button, the stop video button, you have a up arrow. And you can try it as I'm speaking if you want to. You can click on that up arrow and choose a virtual background. So by clicking this, it'll bring you to the Zoom settings on the virtual background tab. And you can see Kaylee has prepared one already from her favorite Netflix show of the moment, Tiger King. So what I love to do here is, Marnie was asking on chat if I could have the Bahamas. So yes, you can upload pictures. So there might be some by default, but if you don't see any, you have this add image button right here. So if you click add image, you can browse your computer for an image. Now that means if you want a couple of images, you download them beforehand. So what would be interesting images? Maybe your kitchens that you've designed. So you want to show a great design, and especially if there's no big unfinished walls on one end. So you can put pretty much any picture background that you want. So here I can put one of our promotional pictures. There's going to be little artifacts. You can see that sometimes it doesn't track my head completely, and my hands might look weird. So it is not perfect. The other thing, it consumes a lot of your processor. So if you have an older machine, you might have a hard time activating this, or you might have not the optimal results. But the newer your computer is, the easier it has, the more resources it has to actually process this. So if I walk that back again, you go up arrow next to video, choose a virtual background, browse through your computer for a new background if you want. I already uploaded one for people in Edmonton, so that you just feel at home.
That's in July, right?
Exactly. So, but you can go for whatever your house content is. And if the computer's a little too old, you'll actually toggle the I have a green screen, which means that you need some uniform background, not like mine with pictures on it, but if it's just a blue wall with nothing on it, would actually make it easier. So keep that in mind. It's a good tool, but it does require a fairly recent computer to use. Any questions here? Cool. So that's the pro tip. Other things that you need to know while managing a Zoom meeting. You have invite people. So if you started a meeting without inviting anyone, you can always click here and send out an email invite right from the screen and get somebody on it right there. You haven't scheduled it in advance. You can manage your participants, which is pretty cool. If I click here, that's where I'll have on the right-hand side a list of all participants. You have something similar right now. You'll see a list, but I, as the host, have the possibility to mute other people, not just myself. I can mute anybody. I can rename myself, and I can eject people for the meeting if there's a problem. But typically, shouldn't have to use that. So at the bottom, you'll see here mute all and unmute all. So if you have background sounds from somebody, they just left the desk and now the dog is barking, you can mute that person or mute everyone and then just unmute the right person you want to interact with. You also have a lot of other possibilities, but I won't go through all of them. You're welcome to explore, but I do want to give you the basics so that you can start off from the moment you're done with this webinar. So other than that, you have the share screen, which is very, very, very useful. If you haven't used that before, it enables you to share your desktop. So your client will see either the whole thing in your desktop or you can specify specific windows. So I'll show you the difference between both. If I click share, you see how it says share your screen. The screen is the whole thing. So if I have not safe for work things on my background, they could technically see it if you're going to that background before moving to something else. But you could also share specific screens. So I have a program open, maybe 2020 design, or I have pictures open because I do want to share with them renderings or pictures of renderings. I could choose that specific software. And if I do that, I'll share my Teams screen. You'll only see the Teams screen. So if I minimize it, you won't see anything anymore. It will pause that screen. So be careful, because people tend to go very secure. And you see now my menu is on the top of my screen instead of the bottom. When I share my screen, it does flip it up instead of keeping it down. So if I share here and I move from one screen to the other, they won't see it. So I tend to, more often than not, to keep things simple, share my whole screen. I just keep things clean. So if my background is clean and I don't have anything that I don't mind my clients seeing, I'll share the whole screen. So if I flip from one program to another, they will see it. Does that make sense? Any questions here? Clarifications needed? Cool. So let me close this up. Now again, because I'm sharing my screen, it's at the top. You're not limiting to sharing screen. You can actually also, where Kaylee was mentioning, you can flip to another device. So you see screen, iPhone, iPad, so you can present a different screen. I have not fully tested that yet, as I don't have an iPad nor an iPhone. I'm on Android, so I wasn't able to fully test that and let you know. But you could create a whiteboard. That could be cool in a setting where you're meeting your client and you want to draw something, because this works on an iPad. So I'm using it on the tablet right now, and this tablet actually has a stylus. So I could, with my stylus, start to draw beautiful cabinets. As you can see, I am not a designer, and I'm terrible at drawing. But you could throw that out and kind of sketch out things. So that's just an additional tool, and they will see it live. And your clients can also interact with you on that if you want to. Pretty cool. So I'll close that up. So I can share either a specific screen, but be careful because you'll be limited to that software, and people tend to flip. Or you can share the whole screen, but make sure that you don't have anything you don't want them to see. Prices, competitive information that you don't want them to see necessarily. So that's good. Now, the chat is in case you have a problem with them. The mic's not working, they can't hear you, and instead of just going, you can actually go in the chat and say, hey, can you hear me? So on and so forth. You've been chatting with me already, so you're pretty comfortable with this. And as you're toggling these panels on and off, it populates to the right side of your screen. But if, like me, you have more than one screen, I actually like to pop them out. So pro tip 2, you can pop those out and move them to a different screen, which I can't show you here. And you can pop them back in. So it's really up to your preference here. And you can also record your meeting. That could be useful if you're sharing some information and then you want to send it out as a session to your client. If you record, it will typically record it directly on your computer, unless you pay for a different license, which will get you cloud storage in Zoom. So it says the recorder will be converted to an MP4 at the end of the meeting. Sue has a great question. Do you think the headset works best? You can see we are actually doing it differently. Kaylee has no headset and I have mine. You can probably tell there's a little quality difference between using a computer webcam or a headset. A headset's always best because it does actually, you might hear it sometimes where you talk and you hear yourself talking because somebody else's computer picked up the sound and it's projecting it to everyone. With a headset, that'll never happen because any sound is only coming out of the headset itself. And having a mic, mic's on that side, close to your mouth actually reduces the volume of the mic, it picks up better. So you'll have a better sounding voice. So for me professionally, I do encourage strongly people to have a headset, even if it looks a little bit more awkward, because you get better sound and better experience. Hey, Jason, great kitchen in the back there. You're actually in that kitchen right now, right? Cool. So Jason just played around with the background, virtual background. You got it. You get a point. Kat also asked, does a headset with microphone help reduce the background noise? Yes, because the headset microphones are directional, so they're only picking up something like a 30-degree angle in front. So yes, if there's loud sounds, they'll catch it, but much less than a webcam which is pointing towards me. Kaylee has a great one, because depending on the webcam you're using, she has a good one, so it only picks up a very narrow field. So it also has a disadvantage, as if she's turning her head, you lose the sound from her. With the headset, that never happens, but I still have that narrow field that makes less, it picks up less noise in the background. Great questions, I love it, keep them coming. So you got pretty much the gist of it. At the end, once you're done with your meeting, you click End Meeting. So if I recorded it, it will make it available on my computer, I think in the video section of your My Documents, but I still have to check it because we've recorded most of the meetings right now in the cloud.
Steph, could you hear that snowblower outside?
No, because of your narrow field sound that you've been oh, there you go. So it actually, live, we're learning together. It's actually offering me where do I want to save my meeting. So it's even better. You choose if you want to put it on your desktop or whatever folder you want. And it'll actually create a couple of files. So you see here, there's a video. There's audio only, and kind of a playback playlist for one file. So you could use audio only or the video part. So if I open it up, you'll actually see a little bit of the recording there.
So we do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
One from Marnie, if recording is included in the free version.
Exactly. The simulation I'm using right now is a personal account of mine. So it is the free basic account. So yes, it does record. And can participants record the meeting themselves? Yes, it's possible, but it is, you'll always know, because right now we're recording this session, and you should be able to see at the top of your screen a recording icon, so a little red dot. I don't know exactly where it is on your screen. We should see probably on the left, top left, something that says recording, so you'll know. It's not hidden. Thank you, Marnie. It's by my name. Other questions on this? So now you got the basics. Now practice makes perfect. I've shared with you lots of information to start you off if you've never used this before. But if I go back to the PowerPoint, here, Zoom tutorials. This is your best friend post this session. Most of what I've shown you, and some more than that, actually from Zoom. I saved you the work of trying to find exactly where the tutorial videos are. But you do have join, I'll make it a little bigger, join a meeting, schedule a meeting, meeting controls, schedule a meeting with Google, Outlook, modify privileges, all of that and more that I've shared, you'll have links to if you want to go back in there. And also, let's talk about your setup. That's another blog from Zoom themselves that kind of meshes together whatever Kaylee had mentioned as best practices and what I've mentioned as setting up. So it walked you through getting the right license, so the free one to start off, set up, making sure you can either change your background if it's busy, how to tips and tricks on screen sharing, whiteboarding that I've shared with you. So those two resources are pretty much a good recap of the webinar itself. Now, best practices that I've already started to talk to you about. If I go back full screen on that, prepare your contact, send them out a little email, have them test their speakers beforehand so that they can write back to you and you can work issues with them or let them work themselves the issues. It's really simple. They'd sometimes just have the mic not enabled, or they're using the wrong camera on certain devices. There's the back and front camera, especially on the phone, so they might not just have the right one set up. And then use your camera, engage. That's the digital human touch. Manage your background. I showed you how to blur it. If you have a very busy background like this, I don't know if it actually plays, but you can see dog and kid playing in the background, but the beautiful kitchen Jason has put. So you can right click on that and save it for you. Is that one of your designs?
It is, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Love the hood in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of wood color. I know a lot of kitchens are white.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the wood kitchens.
Hopefully it comes back around a little bit.
Yeah, I hope to. Now, there's also additional stuff that I won't do with you, but I will actually share with you. There's a Zoom plugin for Outlook. So you can actually download that plugin so that in your Outlook, you have a scheduled meeting button. You don't need to go to zoom.us, that dashboard, create a new meeting. You can do it straight from Outlook, like if you're using Outlook, you're used to doing. And you'll also have the possibilities to set host video on and the same options I just walked you through. So you'll have those links there, and also how that's the plugin download, and this is how to install it if you have issues. So we got you covered. And anybody here, show of hands, anybody here knows about OneNote from Microsoft, or used OneNote? Marnie, Jessica, I'm expecting you, Jessica, of course, to know that. Oh, Nicole has used OneNote. Katie? Cool. We're thinking of bringing a OneNote webinar too. What is OneNote? It's basically a smart notebook. Instead of taking notes on paper, all my notes professionally for the past 10 years have only been digital. And one of the people we interviewed was Alan from Alan's Fine Cabinetry. I misquoted his state last time. What state is Alan from?
He's from Oregon. Actually, if I may, oh, looks like there's an answer. There was a quick question just on the last slide, if you can restrict participants from recording your Zoom meeting.
I have, I don't want to misinform you, but I think there is. I haven't done it yet. But in the settings, either of the setup of the meeting or while the meeting is started, I'm pretty sure you can. I just haven't explored it fully. What I can do, though, is find that answer and make sure that in the following package we'll send you, we get this answered for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions I didn't see? No? Perfect. So Alan here, when I interviewed him, I just took my notes on OneNote. It's part of any Office suite. So if you have Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, you have OneNote, you may just not know it. And it's really a smart book on steroids. It is amazing. Because I do take a lot of notes. And if you scribble notes on paper, good luck searching them in the future. Like 3-4 months down the road, you just have to flip. In OneNote, there's a search function. I search, I find. So I can go really quick. You can create to-do lists in OneNote. There's a little to-do button, and you can have these notes shared amongst your team. So I can have it shared live or send it afterwards. So I know Alan actually uses OneNote, takes his talking points, and when he's talking to his client, and basically does minutes out of that and sends that to his client along with renderings. Oh, Sue says, I don't think you can stop from screenshots of your design if they're a slide. No, anybody can take a screenshot at any time. So that's the digital reality we live in. We can put roadblocks, hurdles to make it a little less easy for them to do so, but they could at any time take a screenshot of your screen that you're presenting. Because if I go back to best practices, because I know a lot of you will have that on your mind, if I'm doing a virtual meeting, should I send a rendering to them? Let me just put back here my PowerPoint. Should I send a rendering to them? I'll stop sharing my screen so you can actually focus on me. Alan from Alan's Fine Cabinetry actually sends their rendering. They don't put dimensions on it. They don't want to give everything on the golden platter, but he does develop a great relationship with his clients. He has a lot of value in their eyes. So the great majority of his clients actually won't shop around or try to get his drawings or renderings to Home Depot to do it. There might be a small percentage of that do that, but I'm pretty sure that, especially if you have some experience as a designer, you're pretty good at kind of finding him out and sizing the client, and you'll know if you want to go more in depth or less in depth. So to me, the levels is, if my most secure one is I'll share my screen, you can look at it, And if you're really adamant, you'll screenshot, but you'll have a hard time you putting that in neat big slides and running to your Home Depot. But you could still do it, but at least you don't have anything tangible. But Alan goes a step further. He actually, after the call, sends them the renderings as an MP4 without dimensions, so they can actually, after they've met, maybe are sitting with a different family member, they'll play the video and the family member will go, wow, that's really cool kitchen. So you're brickwalling your client there. They're actually, you're prolonging your effect, your wow effect, because they can look at it and look at it and look at it. So in his point of view is he gained more business than he lost by being more open and more transparent and sending them out. But it's always up to you. The first step is to screen share. Second step would be, if you're open to that, to send it out. But there's always ways. If there's a technology to bring you something, there's ways to steal it, always. It's a cat and mouse thing. So that's OneNote in a nutshell. But we will send to you eventually surveys to gauge what other webinars you want from us. So if there is interest, we'll bring in one, because we've worked on it already. Other tools also in your digital toolbox that you might have. The cloud drives could be Google Drive, could be OneDrive, could be the one from Apple. They're great because you can put that document there and share a link to the document to your client. So if you update it in the meantime, they're always up to date. They always, and if you stop sharing, they lose access. If I send to you a document by email, I lose complete control over it. So you have that document, you can forward it to the whole world if you want to. But if I share you a link to OneDrive, well, I can remove that access at any time. So if you haven't downloaded it and screenshotted it, I have more control. So it's not perfect, but it's better control than sending anything over the internet. So I do recommend you explore that if you haven't already used these tools of putting documents there and sharing links to those documents to your clients. FaceTime works well. Your iPad, Kelly had mentioned too, Alan uses this a lot. He actually does tours from within the showroom on Zoom with their clients. So that he can walk to a specific cabinet and show a couple of things by just using his iPad and moving the camera around. You can do that with also a laptop. It's just a little bit more bulky. But he actually privileges Zoom on his iPad. So that could be a good trick for you if you do have a tablet or an iPad. It's not limited to iPad. You can have a Samsung tablet or an Acer tablet and actually do your Zoom meeting from there. And then if you have a stand, you put it on the stand so there's a nice angle for you to see. And those tablets usually come with a little drawing pen, which is really cool if you want to annotate live your information. Sue, I think, has a question. So right now, the host here is on a paid subscription. We have a license because we're more than 3 and we go over 40 minutes. So we have purchased a license to host these meetings with you. I don't remember exactly the price, but it is not that price. You'll have it in the links of the PowerPoint presentation. So rendering tools, we've just talked about that. To me, it's a great way to bridge that digital gap so that your clients can look and feel your kitchen. And I think this should actually be the future. Not to replace the face-to-face contact, but if we were not in a crisis right now, I would still do my face-to-face contact, but I would use renderings to actually have the client dream about their kitchen. And Sue's asking also, does the license allow all individuals of your team to use it, or is it used by one person? We've created one called Training at Cabico. So that license has one password, and we share it amongst the trainers. So we have one license, and as long as we don't do 2 meetings at the same time, we're fine. So you can share that license with the different team members. Just know that if you both of them want to do a meeting at the same time, one will actually have the other logged off. We've tried it. So Jessica's kicked me off of my test meetings in the past. But she's
you kicked me off mine too, so it goes both ways.
I have a different recollection of this.
Oh, okay. Convenient. That's convenient.
I like to blame her for everything. So there you go. So any other questions before we wrap it up and I make this available to you and Kaylee closes this off? So questions, comments, cries of joy. So back to you, Kaylee. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll let you share on that slide. And as Kaylee wraps it up on the next steps, I will do 2 things. I will share with you the PowerPoint of this webinar, and also send you a link to evaluate our performance, to let us know what went well, what do we need to change to improve for the next one. That to us is very, very valuable because we're brand new, we're testing this, and we want to bring you the best value possible. So back to you, Kaylee, and look at the chat as Kaylee is talking, as we'll deposit the files there.
Yes. Hey, thank you, Steph. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and joining us. We got some really great feedback about what we are working on. So what we hope to gain from all of this and having you attend this webinar particularly is to implement as many of these as you can starting working from home. And Friday, please come to our Q&A that we have in the morning, because we want to know if you have noticed a difference implementing these things, if you've already been using them, if there's any other thing you have been using that you find really helps, and we can share those best practices with the rest of our family, our team, and have everyone as happy and healthy as possible. So we will definitely be on there Friday morning, so it's 8 o'clock Eastern time, and please let us know how implementing these tips and tricks or using these tools has gone. And if you've been using them and you have more questions, definitely please attend, and Stefan can answer them for you.